Hi everyone. Kumusta kayong lahat? I hope you all are well, safe and healthy. Again, welcome to another school year. This school year is meant for new beginnings. So, yeah, let's start the school year, right? So, again, sana may matutunan kayo for this lesson. So, for today's discussion, we will be discussing the study of literature. Okay? So, alam ko ang literature subject hindi na yan alien para sa atin dahil simula elementary and high school and senior high may mga touch na of literature subjects. So this is just a recap. Okay, so again, let's start first and foremost with the definition of literature. So, literature is the artistic interpretation of life through the medium called language. So, ano ba yung language? So, language is our expression, right? Alam niyo na yan, expression of our emotional, parang emotional release natin siya. So, through literature, it is our artistic interpretation of life. So, artistic meaning subtle, direct, and suggestive. And interpretation yan yung commentary natin about human condition and the universal truths of life. So, literature presents man's dreams, aspirations, joy, sorrows, triumphs, and failures. So, sabi nga nila, ito nga, life illuminates literature and literature illuminates life. So, ano bang ibig sabihin nun? Sabi nga nila, life provides the materials for literature, but literature itself gives meaning into life. So, sa madaling pagkasabi, literature influences us and makes us understand every walk of life. So, parang literature inspires us to have empathy, or it provides us the parang opportunity to learn din the perspective of others. So, yun ang nagagawa ng literature. So, sabi nga, we can fully immerse ourselves into a different mindset and, we are able to figure out how others think and feel. So, through literature, nagkakaroon tayo ng wide array of understanding. So, it parang, to fully understand yourself, you need to look beyond the expected din di ba? So, yeah, yun ang nagagawa ng literature. It is, immersing us into different perspectives. Okay, so literature can be both oral and written. So, yan. Literature presents well-expressed ideas or feelings, usually in symbols and or metaphors. So, it is different from writing or talking about it in an ordinary communication discourse. So, yeah, literature is not simply for self-expression but conceptual, meaning theoretical. Okay? So, it is this form of writing or oral literature that creates and recreates life in all its splendor through symbolic representation. So, sum up lang natin yon. Literature again is an expression or our emotional release. So, literature is a way of interpreting our lives in an artistic way. And through literature, we are able to immerse into the perspective of others. So, we are able to understand then the life that, yung mundo din nila. Okay. So, yan ang nagagawa ng literature. I know, pag narinig natin yung word na literature, parang overwhelming for us. Kasi, parang, honestly, for me, overwhelming siya kasi parang we would think na of the stories that we have to read, the number of pages, the analysis, and so on and so forth. But, to really dive deeper on literature, it really is an art, no? Na parang you have this opportunity to learn from others. Kasi, yun nga, cliche as it may sound, but, no man is an island. So, we cannot learn everything on our own. So, we need others for that. So, literature is one way of, opening ourselves to the world. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to values of literature. So, we have 3 values. We have aesthetic, cognitive, and social. So, aesthetic means, to give pleasure to the readers. Pleasure is gratification, enjoyment, and contentment. So yung central distinctive value of literature is, to give joy to the readers, no? Yun nga, the experience is unified, complex, intense, and therefore inherently satisfying. I know some of you are feeling at ease din pag nagbabasa. Parang pag nagbabasa ka, you are away from the reality, or parang parang you have that sense of peace din in you. So, yeah, depende sa mga binabasa nyo pero when you are reading these literary pieces, parang for a moment, parang you are transmitted into another world. So, ayun, maganda, yan talaga yung nabibigay ng literature. It is to give pleasure, joy, contentment to the readers. Ayan. So, very easy explanation lang yan. And then, hindi ko na to hahabain pa or yan toto dahil alam ko, na lang to recap. So, cognitive naman is to give readers knowledge. So, yan, it enlarges our acquaintances with human beings and sharpens our perceptions of the human motives and feelings. So, yan yung sinasabi ko kanina na, it can give us insights into ourselves, helping us to understand ourselves and the others better. So, that is through literature or through art, no? We have this opportunity talaga to know them better. Kasi we have this tendency na we see lang through our eyes. But through literature, kasi sabi nga kanina, literature is both oral and written. So we are able to hear and to read. Hindi lang siya yung mere eyes lang na na-judge natin yung tao. So through literature, we have that opportunity, to really know the person better, or iba talaga yung nagagawa ng literature din in our lives, or iba talagang nagagawa ng reading din and listening sa atin. And the last one is social values, and now this is the capacity of literature to inspire readers to change themselves and the world around them for the better. So, includes moral, political, and religious values. So, sabi nga nila, do not be afraid to say something, be it in oral or written. One day, ma-realize mo na you are able to inspire others, to change themselves and the world around them for the better. So, take it one step at a time. Tulungan tayo, especially this pandemic. This is our chance to make something na would really make a mark, something that is inspirational for others then, and for us. Okay, so again, that is the values of literature. Aesthetic, for pleasure, enjoyment. Cognitive is to give readers knowledge, to sharpen our perceptions of the human motives, ganyan. And the social value is to inspire readers to change themselves and the world around them. Okay, so let's move on to the genres. So, genres of literature, we have content, form, and purpose. So, ayan, alam ko, narinig nyo na tong mga to. So, let's start na agad with the content. So, for the content, we have two types of literature according to content. We have the fiction and the non-fiction. So, when we speak of fiction, yan yung imaginative recreation and the reconstruction of life. While non-fiction is the opposite. So, yan yung based on the reality or the factual, or yan, taken from the reality. So, for fiction, alam kong madali na lang to for you. Yung fable, yan yung mga short tale that contains a lesson and whose characters are often animals. So, yan yung mga naririnig natin ng bata tayo. Yan yung mga nasa coloring books, ganyan. And then we have legend, so a story made up from long ago which tells the origin of things, events, forces in nature. And then we have myth, yan yung mga superhuman beings and unlikely events. So, yan mga traditional stories na were created also long ago by storytellers and passed down by word of mouth from one generation to the next. Okay, we have parable. Ito naman yung short narrative to illustrate man's relation with God. So, sometimes it may not be understood literally. Yan. And then we have fairy tale. Yan naman yung adventures of the supernatural spirits whose behaviors are often playful, benevolent, and sometimes wicked. Ayan. So, yun lang yung ating under content. So, again, we have two types of literature under content. We have the fiction and non-fiction. So, yan. Madali na lang yan sa inyo. Okay, how about types of modern fiction? So, we have short story, novelette, and novel. So, short story, short, ibig sabihin, it can be read in one sitting. So, it focuses on one event, on a single event, involving few fictional characters. So, novelette naman is a fiction narrative that is longer than a short story but shorter than a novel. And the novel is the extended narrative that portrays fictional characters engaging in actions and conflicts. So, yan yung types of modern fiction. Okay, so let's move on to the non-fiction. So this is the opposite. So this one naman is based from their reality. So we have number 1, autobiography and biography. So alam niyo na yung difference ng auto and biography. So auto is siya mismo yung nagsulat about sa sarili niya, and the biography is another book that tells something about the person's life. So yun yung difference niya. Autobiography, ikaw nagsulat noon ng narrative about sa sarili mo. Biography naman is yung iba yung nagkukwento ng buhay mo. Okay, diary naman, a day-to-day account of a person's activities and experiences. Essay, prose composition of any length intended to present a tentative explanation and evaluation of the subject. Journal, personal account on occasional basis. Ayan. News, alam niyo na yan, to inform the public both in written and spoken form. And history is the written record of the past. So, ito lang yung table for, to differentiate fiction and non-fiction. So, what's the purpose of fiction? It is to entertain, to delight, and to amuse. While for non-fiction, that is to inform, to teach, to direct, to instruct. For the fiction under language naman, it has concrete language which create pictures. So, yun yung mga figurative language, na gumagamit sila ng mga metaphors o mga connotative. Connotative kasi something that is definition that involves your emotional side. So, we will discuss that later. Yes, and then for the non-fiction, we have direct and abstract. So, non-representational and non-figurative. And for the appeal, yung appeal ng fiction is emotion and imagination talaga. While for the non-fiction, it is for intellect and reason. So, nakikita niyo na yung difference? So, ayan. Fiction, ang tinatamaan talaga niya yung puso. Okay, for the non-fiction, ang utak. Ayan. So, dapat balance ang binabasa. Wag lang puro puso at wag lang puro utak. Okay? So, dapat balance yan. Okay. Okay, let's move on to according to form. So, we have two types under form, prose and poetry. Okay. So, for the prose, unit of thought is expressed in sentences. Ibig sabihin, parang it imitates your spoken language. So, yan, sabi dito, ordinary form of language. Wala siyang metric system or metric rhythms. So, denotative yung language niya. Ibig sabihin ng denotative is based from the meaning from the dictionary. Okay, so sabi rin sa denotative means direct. So, when we speak of prose, yung mga words na ginagamit dyan are stated clearly, leaving no room for confusion and doubt. Kasi yun naman yung difference niya for poetry. So, ang poetry is expressed in line, verse, and stanza. So, connotative ang meaning niya. Ibig sabihin, implied. What's the meaning of that? So, implied means there's the emotional suggestion of the word. Okay, so I will give you an example. For denotative, the word hot. 'Di ba? For denotative, ang meaning yan sa dictionary either mataas yung temperatura or mataas ang temperatura or yung extremely beautiful, yung wow, she's hot, ganyan. While for the implied naman, ang ibig sabihin yan is I'm so sorry. For the connotative pala, yung implied niyan is, yung hot is nag-imply na you're angry, galit ka. And yun, yung sinasabi ko kanina na maganda siya, extremely hot, parang ganyan. But for the meaning sa dictionary, sa denotative, hot means yung mainit na panahon. Okay. And then, ayun lang, that's for the form, prose and poetry. So again, for the prose, imitation of the language, yung formal language, spoken language na ginagamit natin sa pang-araw-araw. So, wala siyang rhythms, wala siyang metric na ano. While for poetry, ayan, may line, verse, and stanza siya. Next, how about, according to purpose, we have narration, description, exposition, and argumentation. So, the purpose of these stories, novels, essays, short stories, mga yan, number one is to tell a story. So, that will fall under narration. And then, description is to create or to evoke the picture of an object, person, or scene. So, exposition naman is to expound, elaborate an idea or thought. And argumentation, and that is to persuade, convince, or influence. Ayan. And then, let's move on to methods of studying literature. So, number one is historical approach. So, this one, from the word historical, we follow chronological sequence. So, may mga anong unang nangyari, ano yung at present, ganyan. So, may influence din yan sa past writer. So, yan. Stresses the influence of one writer to another and the development of modes and submodes. So, for historical approach, makikita natin na there's the tendency na may, kunwari, may literature from the past or may literary piece from the past, another writer is reacting to it. Parang yung The Name's Reply, The Passionate Shepherd and The Name's Reply. So that's one example of historical approach, the influence of one writer to the another and the development of modes and submodes. Ayan. Next, we have social psychological approach. So this relates to the milieu or the environment. So the social environment that we are in. So sabi dito, relates literary works to the milieu in which they were written. So exploring the biography of the writer and the political and social conditions under which he wrote in an effort to explain how the work came to be what it is. Okay, so dito social psychological, ito yung mga written output siguro from the past na during wars, mga ganyan. So dun natin mas mararamdaman yung connection ng written output na yan dun sa environment na nangyayari sa paligid. Ayan. For the formal approach naman, group works according to their modes and studies each modes separately. So, sabi dito, yung formal approach is the arrangement of language. So, yung flow of writing niya, that is the study of, inaaral mo yung words na ginagamit dun sa story. So, inaaral mo yung mga words and figurative languages na ginagamit niya and the literary devices. While for the thematic approach, ito naman yung nag-dive in ka into the patterns. Ano ba yung meaning? So, sa psychology, ito yung mas madalas daw ginagamit since sa psychology, you are identifying patterns in meaning across the data. So, sabi dito, pag may isang bagay, you are studying for the pattern and you will look for the meaning of that pattern. So, yun yung sa thematic. While sa formal, inaaral talaga niya yung syntax, yung formation of the language, yung mga words na ginamit, figurative words, literary devices. Sa thematic, focuses on the theme, on the meaning of the literary piece. Ayan. So, let's move on to the kinds of character that can be portrayed. So, we have the major character, the protagonist, and antagonist. So, the main question of that is, we have this misconception na yung protagonist ay yung mga mabubuti lang. Hindi naman. Ang protagonist kasi is from a ancient Greek word ata yun na sabi dito, one who plays the first part. O siya yung chief actor. So, that doesn't mean na mabuti lang siya or masama lang siya. It can either be, either sa dalawa, mabuti or masama. Basta siya yung chief actor, yung unang actor, while the antagonist is the one that interferes or opposes the physiological action of the another. So sabi dito, it doesn't need to be human all the time. So antagonist can be in a form of force. So nature, yung mga acts of nature na yan. So i-clarify lang natin yan, protagonist, hindi lang siya good. Basta ang ibig sabihin ng protagonist is the chief actor. So pwede siyang maging good or bad. Okay? Basta siya yung unang actor na nagpakita or yung the chief actor. While the antagonist naman, nag-o-oppose or nag-interfere dun sa chief actor. Okay? So, hindi lang din ibig sabihin na tao lang ang antagonist, but it can be a force or nature, acts of nature. Next, we have the minor. We have the confidant, foil, and stock. So, in confidant is to whom the protagonist reveals his reflections or hopes. Foil provides a striking contrast to another character. Stock shows qualities of a national, social, or occupational group to which he belongs. Ayan. Next, let's move on to the according to the fullness of development. So we have flat and round. Ayan. So flat, ibig sabihin uncomplicated. There is no changes. Walang development. So flat lang. Ayan. Uncomplicated. All throughout the course of the storyline, hindi siya nagbago. As in, as is siya. While the round, dynamic siya. So, nagde-develop yung kanyang inner personality. So, pinakamadaling example dyan, si Elsa sa, ano bang film yun? Elsa sa Frozen. Ayan. So, si Elsa, nagbago yung personality niya, yung inner personality niya. So, Elsa is an example of the round, actress. Ayan. Okay, so now according to changes undergone in the story, we have static and developing. So static, same lang din sa flat, so remains the same throughout the course of the storyline or throughout the work. And developing or dynamic, there's that internal change. So you can see another side of the personality. Ayan. So there's development, ayan, andyan na yan, development and dynamic, ayan. So, yun lang. Let's move on to the elements of plot development. Ayan. So, alam ko hindi na to bago sa inyo. Ayan, malapit na tayong matapos. So, ayan, babasahin na lang natin, elements of plot. So, sabi nga dito, a plot is the organized pattern or sequence of events to make up a story. So, tingnan nyo to, the king died and then the queen died. Parang walang ka-thrill-thrill, right? Parang, sabi nga dito, there is no plot for a story. But, by writing the king died and the queen died of grief, there's that certain, parang, conflict or parang, may thrill na pinaparating. So, yun ang nagagawa ng plot. Okay. So, ayan, we have the exposition. So, exposition is where the reader, the writer orients the reader to the setting of the story. So, dinidescribe niya yung time, yung place, dinidescribe niya yung mga characters. So, dyan niya na ini-introduce. So, yan din yung presentation of essential information regarding what has occurred prior to the beginning of the story. So, kung nakakabasa kayo ng mga libro, may nabasa ko once noon na that certain page is parang a copy of that page sa medyo last part na. So, parang may aabangan ka. So, yun ang ginagawa ng exposition. Medyo nagbibigay siya ng thrill or pinapakilala niya kung ano yung nangyari 10 years ago, mga ganyan, or anong yung aabangan mo. So, dun niya binibigay paunti-unti yung information. Okay, so rising action naman, nandyan yung complications na that occur within the story. So, yan yung prolonging and developing the central conflict. So, a set of conflict and crisis that constitute the parts of a story plot leading up to the climax. So, conflict, ayan yung man versus nature, man versus society, and man versus himself. So, babalik tayo dun sa antagonist nga na sinasabi ko na yung antagonist hindi lang laging human. So, pwedeng nature, pwedeng society, and pwedeng sa sarili niya. Okay. Ayan. Let's move on to the climax. So, climax is the point of the greatest tension in a story. So, the point of no return. So, yan yung decisive moment in a work of literature. So, the climax is the turning point of the play to which the rising action leads. So, this is the crucial part of the work. So, the part which determines the outcome of the conflict. Ayan. Okay, let's move on to the falling action. So, yan yung result na of the conflict and that is revealed by the falling action. So, the falling action is the series of events which take place after the climax. So, it is where the protagonist must react to the changes that occur during the climax of the story. And then the denouement is the resolution. So, resolution is the set of events that bring the story to a close. So, it establishes a new norm, a new state of affairs, the way things are going to be from then on. So, yan yung the author oftentimes ties up the loose ends of the story to have the plot reach a conclusion. Medyo tumutunog na ang mga manok. Ayan. Okay, so ito lang, mabilisang summary lang. So, for exposition, ito yung author's introduction about the characters, setting, situation at the beginning of the story. Narrative hook, ayan yung point in a story at which the author catches the reader's attention by presenting an interesting problem or situation. Rising action is the part of the plot that adds complication to the plot's problems and increases readers' interest. Next, conflict is the struggle between two opposing forces. External conflict, a character struggles against some outside force. Internal conflict naman is a struggle within the mind of a character who is torn between opposing feelings or goals. Ayan. And then climax and the point of greatest emotional intensity or interest or suspense of the story. Falling action is the action that follows the climax. Resolution is the part of a plot concludes the falling action by revealing or suggesting the outcome of the conflict. And ayan. Ulitin ko, plot is the sequence of events in a story. So that's the end of the lesson 1. So, more on recap lang talaga siya. Again, in order for you to achieve or to be successful in all that you do, you need to really love it. So, this is a challenge for us, for those na, I include myself on this. For those who are, trying pa to love literature. Again, literature is an opportunity for us to really learn the perspective of others. So, we shouldn't waste that. And through literature, we can empathize more, we can inspire others more. So learn to love the literature, not only by subject, the literature in general. Ayun. I hope may natutunan kayo. Provided naman lahat ng PDFs for this. So please keep safe and stay healthy, stay happy. Kahit despite everything na nangyayari sa mundo, we also need to keep that positive attitude in us. So ayan lang. God bless everyone and I hope to see you in the next lesson. Bye!